Chosen one, you walked through a storm of illusions meant to blur your vision, but your inner eye never closed. They conspired in shadows, stitching lies into cloaks of credibility, hoping you'd wear the shame they tailored for you. But you wore armor forged in silence, in trials only the heavens bore witness to. While they whispered curses into the wind, you spoke only to the truth, and the truth echoed louder than their entire chorus of deceit. They played gods with false narratives, but you carried divine proof in your breath. And now the same mouths that once slandered you tremble in awe, realizing too late you were never theirs to destroy. They launched full-scale spiritual warfare, deploying envy like missiles and doubt like landmines, hoping to fracture your soul before you ever rose. But you were built in realms they can't decode, crafted by hands that don't tremble under pressure. Their desperation exposed their fear. They sensed your light before you even knew you were glowing. What they called overkill was just a confession that your existence alone was too powerful to ignore, too sacred to let unfold without resistance. The sheer weight of their efforts was the loudest confirmation. You are exactly who they feared you'd become. They mistook their projections for prophecy, their bitterness for divine insight. But the cosmos does not whisper to the bitter-hearted. You, chosen one, are the living contradiction to every false vision they conjured. While they danced in circles of ego, calling it foresight, you walked a straight path lit by divine alignment. Their words were curses dressed as revelations, but truth doesn't bend to envy. You are the proof that real prophecy doesn't crumble under scrutiny. It crystallizes in the fire. And now, with every step you take, the universe affirms what they tried to bury, that destiny favors the aligned, not the loud. Every time you rise, their illusions collapse like sand castles at high tide. This is the ancient rhythm. Light emerges, darkness reacts, and truth prevails. They scrambled to bury you beneath layers of deceit, hoping you'd forget who you were under all that weight. But you didn't just survive. You turned the pressure into prophecy. Their efforts were never proof of your weakness, but evidence of your divine voltage. And now, with every move you make, you don't just reclaim your story, you rewrite the laws they tried to break. Because no counterfeit shadow can silence a soul that was ignited by the original flame. They weren't fighting you, they were fighting what awakens when someone like you remembers who they are. The hostility was never about your name. It was about your frequency, your alignment, your refusal to bow to illusions. You carried codes that unravel lies just by existing. So the system, sensing its expiration, panicked. It sent agents of chaos, masked as co-workers, friends, even family, all trying to dim a light they couldn't comprehend. But that light wasn't borrowed. It was encoded in your DNA. And now, as the veil thins, you'll see clearly. Every attack was confirmation that your very presence threatened the entire architecture of falsehood they built their power on. They moved like covert operatives, cloaked in civility, masked in concern, but every word was a calculated incision aimed at severing your influence. In dim rooms and hidden group chats, they drafted blueprints of sabotage, dissecting your every decision like forensic analysts of a threat they couldn't neutralize. This wasn't jealousy, it was strategic containment. You were never just a person to them, you were a disruption, a glitch in their matrix of control. They didn't react to what you said, they reacted to what your existence revealed. And so they built illusions, hoping to drown your signal in noise. But no matter how loud their machinery got, truth kept humming through you like a frequency they could never jam. When your elevation proved untouchable, they resorted to narrative warfare. They couldn't stop your rise, so they tried to contaminate the air around it. They became authors of false timelines, scripting scenes you never lived and assigning motives you never held. In backrooms and inboxes, they drafted entire sagas where you were the villain in their fragile fairy tales. Their aim wasn't just to damage your name, it was to plant doubt in the minds of those destined to walk with you. But what they failed to understand is this: truth doesn't need a defense team, it simply waits. And when the fog lifts, what's real remains. and what's manufactured evaporates. They didn't fabricate lies out of thin air. They weaponized fragments of truth, bending them just enough to fracture your image while keeping a veneer of plausibility. They knew full falsehoods wouldn't stick, so they distorted the authentic, just enough to spark suspicion. A moment of ambition became a narrative of greed. A boundary you set became evidence of arrogance. They turned your clarity into arrogance, your silence into guilt, your discernment into manipulation. It wasn't slander, it was sabotage dressed in the language of concern. But the truth, though buried under distortion, remained intact, waiting like a buried seed for the right season to rise and reclaim the ground. They could imitate your style, mimic your methods, even copy your language, but they could never counterfeit the source that fueled you. That sacred current running through your spirit unsettled them in ways they couldn't articulate. It wasn't just what you did, it was how you did it, with a knowing they couldn't trace, a power they couldn't predict, and a peace they couldn't disrupt. Your presence exposed the emptiness of their performance. You didn't chase influence, yet it followed you. You didn't seek validation, yet your words echoed like prophecy. That's why they scrambled, not because you broke the rules, but because you rendered their games obsolete. They waged an invisible war, crafted not with bullets but with precision-engineered distortions, each one calibrated to fracture perception without triggering alarm. Whisper campaigns disguised as concern, strategic silence where truth should have been spoken. They understood that in a world built on perception, all they had to do was tilt the lens through which others saw you. But what they failed to calculate was your access to higher intelligence, downloads from realms beyond their surveillance. While they weaponized earthly data, you moved through spiritual encryption, guided by codes no algorithm could crack. And that, more than anything, made you the anomaly they couldn't contain. They mastered the art of strategic sabotage, hitting not in moments of weakness, but precisely when your light was brightest. Because that's when the shadows feel most threatened. Each milestone you reached was twisted into a weapon aimed at your credibility, designed to seed doubt where confidence should grow. Success was recast as betrayal, progress painted as escape. They didn't seek to understand your journey, they sought to rewrite it, turning triumph into trial by public opinion. Yet, with every calculated strike, they revealed their own insecurity. They feared the undeniable truth that your rise was unstoppable, no matter how fiercely they tried to rewrite your story. Your brilliance was their mirror, reflecting everything they feared they lacked. So they twisted your light into shadows, casting doubt not just on your actions, but on your very worth. In their eyes, your rise wasn't a testament to your strength, but a threat to their comfort zones and fragile egos. They rallied the crowd, stoking envy disguised as judgment, eager to pull you back into a sea of sameness. But no matter how loud the chorus of resentment grew, it only underscored one undeniable truth. You were born to break ceilings, shatter expectations, and redefine what's possible, far beyond the confines they desperately tried to enforce. Your rise unsettled more than egos. It cracked open the facade of complacency and forced a reckoning with uncomfortable truths. They saw in your divine alignment a glaring reflection of their own compromises and unfulfilled potential. So they wove envy into a tangled web of whispers and half-truths, knowing that insecurity spreads faster than facts. Your grace in manifesting abundance without corruption was an indictment of their shortcuts and excuses. They didn't have to prove you wrong, they only needed to stoke the flames of self-doubt in others, turning admiration into bitterness. But the higher you climb, the more visible it becomes. Their shadows grow long only because your light is breaking through the darkness they desperately cling to. They targeted the peaks of your evolution because that's when your brilliance was impossible to ignore, when your energy surged like a beacon, illuminating their cracks and vulnerabilities. In those moments, their fear morphed into frantic resistance, scrambling to extinguish what they couldn't control. Each step you took forward was a challenge to their survival, forcing them to lash out with everything they had left. But what they saw as a threat was actually a testament to your power. The brighter your light, the more desperate their darkness becomes. And no matter how deep their shadows run, they can never fully contain the radiance of a soul destined to rise. They expected you to crumble, to engage in battles they controlled, but instead, you moved with a wisdom beyond their grasp. Your withdrawals were not acts of surrender, they were calculated moves on a cosmic chessboard, gathering strength and insight away from the poison. While they spun narratives of defeat, you were navigating sacred currents, aligning with forces that saw beyond their shallow tactics. Each step back was a preparation for a greater advance, a silent declaration that you would not be ensnared by their chaos, but would emerge renewed, untouchable, and unstoppable. You pulled back not out of fear, but with the clarity of one who knows the battlefield beyond the visible. Each exit was a step toward sanctuary, an unseen stronghold where your truth could breathe and grow untouched. The timing wasn't coincidence, it was orchestration from a higher intelligence, guiding you away from traps before they snapped shut. As chaos unfolded around those you left behind, your departure stood as silent testimony to a protection far greater than human understanding. You didn't just escape, you outmaneuvered a collapsing system, securing your place in a future they could never foresee. Your departures were not acts of rashness, but echoes of inner foresight, choices guided by a deeper knowing that shielded you from being engulfed in decay. You stepped away before storms broke, before foundations crumbled beneath falsehoods too heavy to bear. What others saw as sudden exits were, in truth, preemptive strikes against entanglement in webs not your making. This divine discernment kept your spirit untainted, preserving your role as a beacon of clarity even as your cautions fell on deaf ears. In walking away, you didn't lose ground. You claimed a vantage point from which the truth could be seen with unclouded eyes. In stepping away, you became the quiet force that exposed the cracks others refused to see. Your silence spoke volumes, allowing the unraveling to reveal truths too stubborn to be denied. The chaos that followed was not just proof of your insight, it was a vindication written in the language of consequences. When the dust settled and scrutiny finally arrived, your name emerged not as a suspect, but as a sentinel, one who had sounded alarms that went unanswered, who chose integrity over entanglement. Your absence wasn't a retreat, it was a powerful statement that sometimes the most profound influence comes from knowing when to let the truth reveal itself on its own terms. You became the silent alarm, a living proof that the air was poisoned long before the collapse became visible. By refusing to engage in the clamor of false defenses, you denied your enemies the fuel they needed to legitimize their fabrications. Their scripts depended on reaction, on the spectacle of denial, but you rewrote the rules with quiet strength. In your stillness, you exposed the futility of their attacks, because sometimes the greatest power lies not in shouting back, but in withholding the very words that would give shadows a shape. Your silence was not absence, it was a fortress no lie could breach. By choosing silence, you disarmed their entire arsenal, turning their weapons into echoes without impact. Without the spark of your reaction, their carefully laid traps fell flat, revealing the emptiness beneath their venom. Lies thrive in the fertile ground of conflict, but your calm denied them soil to take root. Their accusations, hungry for rebuttal, found only stillness, an unshakable peace that spoke louder than any defense ever could. In withholding the drama they craved, you revealed the true power of restraint, the ability to let truth stand unchallenged while falsehoods collapse under their own weight. It takes a rare kind of strength to stand unwavering as deception swirls unchecked, trusting that truth's light will cut through the fog without your intervention. Many would have succumbed to the urge to fight back, to prove themselves right, only to entangle deeper in the web of falsehood. But your faith was forged in a fiercer fire, one that knew when to hold ground and when to yield, when to speak and when to listen. You carried the patience of the cosmos itself, knowing that time is the ultimate revealer and that silence, paired with unwavering conviction, is the most potent weapon against a world built on illusions. Anchored in the eternal rhythm of cosmic justice, you weathered the storms of doubt and delay with unwavering patience. While the world clamored for swift vindication, you moved to a higher cadence, one where time unfolds with divine precision, not frantic urgency. You understood that truth is not a fleeting moment, but an eternal force, capable of rising from the ashes stronger than before. Lies, no matter how loud or persistent, are fragile illusions destined to collapse under their own weight. Your faith in this unshakable law became your fortress, allowing you to stand firm when immediate results seemed distant, knowing that the universe always balances the scales in its perfect time. In the crucible of solitude, your true essence was purified and elevated, shining brighter with every trial. The searing heat of isolation did not weaken you. It distilled your spirit into something unbreakable and rare. Meanwhile, those who sought to tarnish your name revealed their true colors, fragile facades cracking under strain, their falsehoods brittle and hollow. What they mistook for weakness became your greatest strength, for pressure does not just test, it transforms. And as your light grew purer, their shadows only deepened, exposing the emptiness beneath their masks.